What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks for the Motorola Moto G Play 2023 that you might not know about. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where we'll be linking to several other videos about it, along with some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to show your battery percentage on the status bar. Now, as you can see right now, the battery percentage is not there, but if you do want it to show, what you can do is go to Settings. Then from here, go to Battery. And in this menu, as you can see, battery percentage is right down here. And as you can see, again, it is off, but if you toggle it on, now we have the battery percentage on the status bar. Now I'm going to show you a few different gesture features. Now to get to these features, what you're going to want to do is go to Settings. Then from here, go to System. From this menu, go to Gestures. So in this menu, the first thing I'm going to show you is a more convenient way to take a screenshot. Now, of course, the normal way, pressing the power key and the volume down key at the same time is easy enough. But if you want, what you can also do is come to this menu and turn on 3-finger screenshot. So right here. So by default, this feature is going to be off, but if you enable it, now to take a screenshot, all you have to do is press and hold 3 fingers on the screen like this. And that's pretty much it. So while it's definitely not a crazy useful feature or anything, if you're taking a lot of screenshots, it's definitely a nice convenient option to have. Now we're going to take a look at a feature called Fast Flashlight. And of course, as the name suggests, it's pretty much just a fast way to turn on your flashlight. So once again, from the Gestures menu, what you're going to want to do is go down to Fast Flashlight, enable it, and now with this feature on, to turn on your flashlight, instead of going to the quick menu and pressing the button, all you have to do is go like this. So as you can see, it turned off. So let's try that one more time. And there we go. So definitely a cool feature. Now one more thing in this menu I want to show you is what you can do with the power key. Now by default, if you double press the power key, it's going to open the assistant. So as you can see, there we go. Definitely a cool feature. But in general, this phone, and honestly pretty much every other Android phone for that matter, has so many other shortcuts for the assistant already. Like for example, if you press and hold the home button, there we go. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like that on pretty much every other Android phone. So yeah, even though being able to open the assistant simply by double pressing the power key is kind of cool, since we already have other shortcuts for it, it's not really necessary. So if you want, what you can do instead is have double pressing the power key open the camera instead. To do this, once again from the Gestures menu, what you're going to want to do is go to double press power key. So as you can see, again, by default, it is going to launch the assistant. You can also have it do nothing if you want to just disable it completely. And then you can also go to launch camera. So now if we double press the power key, it's going to open the camera instead. And the cool thing about this is it works even when the display is locked. So if we go like this, double press, and there we go. So definitely a nice shortcut. Now I'm going to show you how to change your display's refresh rate. Now in case you didn't know, with the Moto G Play 2023, the display does have a 90Hz refresh rate, which basically makes the movement on the screen a bit faster and smoother. So in general, the phone is going to feel a little bit more premium to use. Now it's not really a huge difference. It mainly just affects the scrolling, but when you do have it at 90Hz, or adaptive or auto as they call it, it can potentially drain the battery a bit faster. So if you want the longest battery life you can possibly get, what you can do is actually change it down to 60Hz. So that way the display is not going to consume quite as much power. To do this, what you're going to want to do is go to Settings. From here, go to Display. Then from here, go to Display Refresh Rate. So right here. So as you can see, again, by default, it is going to be on auto, but if you want, you can change it to 60Hz. And now it's not going to feel quite as premium, but it will save a little battery. Now, I do want to point out that the refresh rate in general doesn't make a huge visual difference. I mean, again, at 90Hz, it's really just going to make the scrolling feel a little bit more premium and not a whole lot else. And especially considering with this phone at least, even when the 90Hz is enabled, it's not like it's going to be 90Hz all the time. It's basically just going to use an AI to optimize your scrolling experience. And again, there's really not a whole lot to it. So that being said, although of course it's nice to have the option, switching it down to 60Hz in my opinion doesn't really make a huge difference. I mean, this phone has a really large battery and the battery life is going to be great regardless, so at the end of the day, I personally wouldn't mess with it. But of course, if you ever do want to change it, it definitely is nice that we get that option. Now we're going to take a peek at the peak display. Now, in case you don't know what this is basically Motorola's version of Samsung's always on display. So essentially when you lock the screen, go like this. This is the peak display, so we can customize this a bit. To do this, what you're going to want to do is go to Settings. Then from here, go to Display. And from this menu, peak display is right down here. So right here. So as you can see, it is on by default. You can disable it if you want. And then from here, if we go to settings, as you can see, you can change the clock style. So if we go here, we got a few different options. You can also disable the background. So by default, when you turn this display on, as you can see, there's sort of an animation here, so you can always turn it off. Then we got gestures and haptics, so vibrate on touch, and then safe replies, so if you want to reply to a text without unlocking your phone. And then finally, block apps. So if you want to prevent certain notifications from showing up on the peak display, you can do it here. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to disable the Google feed. Now, in case you don't know what it is, the Google feed is basically just this right here, just a random news feed. I personally never use it. So if you ever get tired of accidentally scrolling onto it and you want to disable it, luckily it's real easy. All you have to do is press and hold your finger anywhere on your home screen, or I guess on any blank spot. So like this. Then from here, go to Home Settings. From this menu, go to Swipe Access. As you can see, by default, the Google feed is going to be on, but if you do nothing, go back to the home screen. As you can see, the Google feed is no longer pulling up. Now I'm going to show you how to make a screen recording. Now making a screen recording is real easy. All you have to do is pull down your quick menu like this. So 1, 2, there we go. From here, go to where it says Screen Record Start. So right here. This message is going to show up. Just hit start. Now there's going to be a countdown. And after that, that's pretty much it. You can do whatever you want to do. There are a few tools up here too. And when you're done, hit stop. And it's going to be saved right to your photos. Now that was easy enough, but there are also some other options we can customize. To get to these, go to Settings. Then from here, go to Display. And from this menu, screen recording is going to be pretty much the last thing on the bottom. So right here. So first of all, if you want to record yourself during the screen recording, that option is on that little toolbar. I'll show you in just a second. But basically, you can change the viewfinder size. So by default, it is going to be small, but you can make it a bit larger. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to go to the screen recording one more time. And basically, if you press this button right here, this little record button kind of thing, it basically allows you to record your face while doing the screen recording. So definitely a cool feature. Then from here, you can also change the resolution. So by default, it will be 720p, which makes sense, since after all, that is the resolution of the actual display. But if you want to save space, maybe you're making a really long screen recording, you can change it to 480p. Then we got record time limit. This is good for, I guess, if you forget that you're screen recording and you want to make sure it doesn't go super long. I know I've done that before actually. So if we go here, by default, it will be unlimited, but you can have it as short as 5 minutes or as long as an hour. File size limit. So just like with the resolution, this is kind of going to help you save some space. I personally feel like screen recordings typically don't take up a ton of space unless you have it going for like 6 hours or something. But if you want, you can always set a size limit. And then finally, record touch points. So this is basically going to put up a cursor wherever you touch. So it's good if you're making a tutorial, for example. And that's pretty much it. And finally, the last thing I'm going to show you is a feature called one-handed mode. Now, as the name suggests, essentially, this feature is basically going to make certain functions on this phone a little bit easier to use with one hand. Now, when it comes to one-handed mode, I'm not the biggest fan of how Motorola does it compared to like Samsung, for example, but in some situations, it still can be decently useful. So to get to one-handed mode, what you're going to want to do is go to Settings. From here, go to System. Then from here, go back to that Gestures menu. And then finally from here, go to one-handed mode. So I do want to point out here that in order to use one-handed mode, or at least the normal way, you will need to have gesture navigation on, which is one of the reasons I'm really not a big fan of it on this phone. But that being said, if you don't want to use gesture navigation, but you still want to use one-handed mode, you can enable the one-handed mode shortcut right here. And this is basically going to make a little button at the bottom of the screen. Honestly, again, I'm not really a huge fan of it, but it does at least work. So by default, one-handed mode is basically going to just pull down your notification center, which again, compared to something like Samsung, that basically makes a mini screen for you to use. It's definitely not nearly as cool, but if you want a quick way to get to your notification center, that's pretty much it. You can also do pull screen into reach, and this is a little bit closer to one-handed mode on other phones, but honestly, in my opinion, still definitely not nearly as good. But essentially, when you have this option, when you turn on one-handed mode, it's basically gonna look like this. So again, not really that useful. I guess it's okay, but it's a little confusing and it kind of cuts off the bottom of the screen. But if you ever do want a more convenient way to use your phone with one hand, then I guess it does help a little. But this concludes my tips and tricks video for the Motorola Moto G Play 2023. Again, if you want to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where we'll be linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.